Hello, Darren.
Hi, Darren. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah. Just been to the gym.
Oh, working out.
I've started showering at the gym because of the energy crisis. I think I pay enough for my gym membership. I used to go there, come back and clean up, but now I think I'll stay a bit longer, use their hot water, save a bit of money. But at best, you could call me an average-shaped man. And obviously, there's some impressive specimens there.
Right. Okay.
And so I went into the gym, into the shower, and there's a very muscular Adonis,
right,
with tattoos across his bare muscular back.
Yeah.
But he was talking to someone on the phone, and he had a really squeaky little voice.
That's why he's worked on his physique.
Yeah, maybe. I want to talk to you about Star Wars.
Da, 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 ba, da, ba. Is that Superman? Ba, ba, da, ba, ba. That's Star Wars, isn't it?
No, that's Superman. It's John Williams.
Superman.
Yeah,
but they're both the same tune.
Yeah. And you're a musician, are you?
Oh God, yeah. I've got the certificate. I've got more qualifications than even you have.
I haven't got any qualifications to be a musician.
Yeah. I'm a qualified musician.
Tell
me about
the joke you mustn't do.
Right.
The joke that is, as old as the hills and would tire out any Star Wars fan is deliberately confusing Star Wars with Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, you got to do I like Mr. Spock. Oh, he's good.
Yeah. That joke.
I don't do that.
That joke was invented around the time AOL was invented.
Yeah, that is not something I do.
What is your relationship with Star Wars?
Oh, blimey. It's fairly platonic relationship with Star Wars. I was never a huge fan, but I never disliked it. I enjoyed Star Wars. The first. When we say the first film, you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah. I know
the one in 1970,
and so do most people know what you mean.
Okay, yeah. So I enjoyed the first film as a kid, and beyond that, that's kind of it. I think I've seen the first film a couple of times. I did see Jedi in the cinema.
Oh, so you're missing the middle one.
Never seen Empire Strikes Back, which everyone tells me is the best one.
Yeah. It's the fans' favourite,
right?
But I think that has a little bit to do with I don't know, the trend. It's more than a trend, isn't it? The idea that anything that's darker has greater substance, and so it's the darkest one. Yeah.
Right.
And fans will say that Empire is their favourite one.
Right.
I think my favourite one is the first one, which I am happy to call Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think I was the perfect age, really. I would have been, let me think, was I 6? Would have been 7 when I saw Star Wars.
Right.
And science fiction up till then existed in Judge Dredd comics, Doctor Who.
Yes, definitely Doctor Who, wasn't it?
And, books, comics, stories. They were films, I suppose. I wonder if I saw a film. But there's something...
I struggle to think of any, really.
But I could name them now. I could name the... I could name the precursors to Star Wars now, but that's because, I'm an adult geek. And so now I could talk about Silent Run in 2001, Dark Star, and
but the thing with those as well, they very cerebral, slow films. They're not really the action film that Star Wars is, are they?
I just had never seen spaceships move like Spitfires, and weave in and out, and have dogfights, and I think that's what it was implied in the pictures in 2000 AD that was happening. I think I'd seen comics imply that. Oh right, they swoop and dive, and this is what it's going to be like in outer space, and lasers shoot out ray guns. Yeah, and there was the Flash Gordon serials and things like that I would see, but none of these gave a sort of visual reality to it. And so when I was 7 and I saw Star Wars, I was like, that's it. That's it. That's what it was supposed to be, isn't it? That's what everything's supposed to be. The spaceships are supposed to fly like that. It's supposed to be massive explosions. The ray guns make a sound and they shoot. I don't know. It seemed... And I sort of still think this about the first Star Wars film, really. I sort of think, why did it take them so long, really? Why did George Lucas finally think of that thing that seemed so obvious? Let's make all of those science fiction fantasies come true. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what it did. It's like, oh, right, I can believe in that. And there is, in an age where, are we even impressed by special effects anymore? We just can see anything on the screen that appears to be impossible, and we will assume it's computers. Yeah. But I think then, in 1977, that was genuinely magic to me. I had no idea how they did it. It seemed impossible what was happening with my own eyes.
And it was amazing. It's really, really well done.
Really amazing. There's a program on Netflix at the moment called Magic and Light, and it's about the guys that made all this happen.
Oh, right. Wow.
And it never occurred to me what it is that makes that sort of those spaceships look so dynamic on the screen. And this guy who had the idea said, up until then, you either move the model or you move the camera. Right. But you never moved both. We didn't know how to do that because you had so many. So they sort of invented the computer motion controlled camera that could move exactly the same way twice. Wow. So they could make a camera that went like that, then they could make the model move like that, and then they could put another model and they could project them onto each other. And yeah, they were the first people that did that. And so that's what it is. It's the fact that the camera's moving and the spaceship's moving. And apparently that's the first time we saw that. And that's the thing you find out about Star Wars, I think, the more you look at what happened in 1977, the more you realize it hasn't really got an author, or due respect to George Lucas. There's like so many accidents,
right?
And so many little bits of serendipity that made this thing happen. You know, like that was one guy who had that idea. There's the you ever see he's not in this one much, but if you ever see a documentary on a guy called Ben Burt, you'd like that. Actually, you'd like that stuff. He's the sound designer for Star Wars.
Right, yeah.
And he was great at sort of combining sounds, like the sound of a bear with an air conditioning unit and things like that, using quite organic sounds for machines and vice versa. And this sort of rich palette of sounds. And so consequently, I mean, I'm still, I'm still a kind of, what am I? I'm a sort of semi-reluctant disciple. Like if anything comes out of the cinema, I'll always go.
Right.
Got my Disney subscription. I watch all the programs.
Yeah.
But I think that's a little bit like supporting a football team, right? You've always supported a football team. You support it. And I don't actually know. It sounds like a weird thing to do now that we're going to talk for quite a while about how much Darren likes Star Wars. I don't know how much I actually do like it. I can't make claims for it being great art. I think a lot of it's nonsense. I think a lot of clearly loads of it was being made up on the spot. This sort of myth that George Lucas had a plan. When Luke and Leia are snogging the first one and end up being brothers and sisters, and even when he adds the others on, there's still no plan. None of it makes any sense. Yeah. And they're still doing it now. They're still, with the recent films, you can tell that they're just, we didn't really think about how this ended, did we? But, I guess what I do like is sort of chasing something about what I felt when I came out of cinema in 1976. Yeah. And I think a lot of adults with Star Wars t-shirts on could possibly, admit the same thing. What's like in anything, really. So many sort of contextual reasons, so many battling things for why we like something. Did you see Star Wars at the cinema?
No, I didn't. I would have been 4, so a bit too young, I think, to be taken. I don't remember seeing it at the cinema. My first film at the cinema was Flash. No, it wasn't, actually. Maybe I wasn't too young, because my first film was Spider-Man.
Which one was that?
Probably. It was a film of you remember the Spider-Man TV series in the 70s?
Yeah, because I was going to think if you were talking about like Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, like you didn't go to the cinema until you were in your 30s or something.
No, it was the film of that series, Um,
Sort of
so I
TV.
imagine that might have been 77, 78. So maybe I did see Star Wars as well, but I don't remember doing so.
My first film, my first time at the cinema was The Rescuers.
Right, yeah.
Film. And I didn't really understand. I remember this. I didn't really understand what people meant when they said go into the pictures.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they meant. I was like, well, we go and look at loads of pictures. It sounded really boring. And like no one had filled in this simple detail. And then when I eventually went to the cinema, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it moves.
It's like the telly, but bigger.
Yeah, like the telly, but bigger.
So, do you remember seeing Star Wars at the cinema?
Yeah, I really, really do.
Yeah,
I really, I really remember the feeling.
Yeah,
is what I remember. I remember, like, oh, like I say, to repeat myself, that makes sense. That's what all these comics and stuff that I've been looking at are supposed to be. That's it really happening.
Yeah.
And some of what I've got around me here and other things that I like that make me travel back in time is how we could, how as a child we could relive that. I mean, I'm thinking that you're just a tiny bit younger than me. So I still think you probably also remember the advent of video.
Yeah.
But before you could have like video, and like my parents wouldn't take me again. I would have wanted to go again, but they wouldn't have taken me again. They would have been a waste of money to go to the cinema twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw Star Wars once. I remember it being a massive, massive deal when it first came on to ITV. I remember we were all so excited because that would possibly have been the second time I saw Star Wars. And it might have been something like 3 or 4 years later. And so I think another part of my sort of another thing I like about Star Wars, or another really fond memory, isn't really the film at all. It's everything around the film, like these guys, because that's how you'd relive the film. So I particularly like the comic versions of it. We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
And
I remember the comics.
And this it's kind of very roughly drawn version of it. And I would read and reread this until this kind of started to supplant my memory of the film.
Yeah.
And indeed, the comic here has some parts in it that aren't in the film because they were working from an early script.
Can you still buy that collection?
Yeah, this sort of, I mean, it might not be in this cover, but it never goes out of print, you know. I mean, there's always a way to buy it.
I might treat myself to that because that is something
this
I
is
remember really
this
well.
is what I like about this one is it has the comic adaptation of the film.
Yeah.
And then they get to the end of the film. Right here they go. There's the Death Star blowing up.
Yeah.
They get their medals. And, you know, this would have happened, you know, I think this is, I don't know, done in 6 issues. There's no way they're not going to carry on doing Star Wars comics.
No.
So straight away here, even then, you suddenly get a new adventures of Han and Luke and Leia. But, you know, look.
It's that guy you met in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like this, I do. He was from Devon. Yeah, look, I mean, I mean, it's just not, they can't quite do it. These comic artists, you know, it's interesting how there's one here. Yeah, look, I mean, this looks like a very sort of,
that's 50s Housewife.
Yeah, look at this picture here.
Funkadelic.
Yeah. But I love all this because they're just, space as a space rabbit. Yeah. And they're sort of clamoring, like quick, we've got to write some new stories.
Yeah.
And now, of course, that the Lucasfilm and stuff is sort of very protective of these things. You wouldn't be able to get away with that now. But then they were just like, fuck it, yeah. just get everyone make stuff.
Yeah.
And so you have this as well, which was this was deemed to be, have you ever seen this before?
No, I've never seen that.
This was deemed to be, this was amazing when this came out, because this was a novel, and so this felt more like, this is the truth, and so this is a story set after Star Wars, and this came out before Empire Strikes Back. And that cover, I really remember that cover because Luke, this is supposed to be Luke here, doesn't really look like him, Luke and Leia. Right. Luke never met Darth Vader in Star Wars. He battled with him in the TIE fighter.
Oh, right.
And so this seemed like, is this it? Is this the second film? And because it's a book rather than a comic, it's more truthful. And so, more and more now, what I like is sort of thinking about. I like thinking about the 1978 and 79 and this world where only one Star Wars film existed.
Yeah.
There was one film called Star Wars, and it was called Star Wars, and it was about, this guy Luke Skywalker who he met this old man and then rescues a princess, and Darth Vader killed Luke's father.
Yep.
If you just think of that film on its own, without the sort of additions, and Leia wasn't his sister.
Yeah.
And when I watch Star Wars, or now more commonly known as Episode 4, I still quite like watching it in that way. I quite like watching it as if there's no other films.
And it works on its own. It's
kind of fantastic how much it works on its own, actually. The problem with sort of making sense of the universe and sort of the sort of how tough it is to be a fan of this thing, which is quite often gobbledygook, starts almost immediately as the second film starts. I do love Empire Strikes Back, and I do love Return of the Jedi. So I'm not saying I don't love them, and as I say, I watch all of it now. I have a certain sort of team loyalty, but at the same time, I like this idea of, what if they'd never made a sequel?
Yeah,
if they'd never made a sequel, I feel like we'd really think of it would be an incredibly special film now that we'd think of in the same way as we do perhaps think of, I don't know, Soylent Green, Planet of the Apes, although they also have sequels.
No, you see, that's one of my favourites, yeah. It's actually, Planet of the Apes is, although that had 5 films, I think, in the original run.
Yeah. And the TV
series. Because they're less well, and the TV series, yeah. Mm-hmm. But that one film is fairly easy to think of as just a standalone piece without worrying about the rest of what came afterwards. Yeah. But Star Wars is definitely... it's harder to think of that film on its own.
It is quite hard to think of its own. The other thing these toys and some of the objects I've got around me, start to become about uncovering memory.
Yeah.
And I think Star Wars has started to sort of mean quite a lot in relation to my dad. My dad, who died 2 years ago of COVID. Yeah. And I think it's kind of weird that pretty soon after he died. I mean, I'll tell the story later of some of this stuff that's around me, but some of this stuff has always been around me, and some of the stuff has sort of been rediscovered. But yeah, the way objects, the way the touch in an object, the feel of an object, and especially drawing it, can transport you through time. And this is something that I've got quite interested, particularly through, because, I mean, but maybe people watching don't know, this isn't the first time I've drawn a Star Wars figure. I've been drawing quite a few over the last year or so, and different.
It probably won't be the last.
No. And so finding objects that trigger these memories is, and then also what I've realised is something I listened to a couple of years ago was the Star Wars radio show.
Right.
And I've realised, like with the comics, the comic gave me these false memories, so that when I saw the film again, and when I started to own it on whatever, video or DVD, I'd be like, I'm sure there was a bit here where this happened. Has they taken a scene out? And lots of the sort of false memories of what was in the film were partly due to the comic, but also partly to do with the radio series. So they did a massive, I think it's something like 14 hours long.
Wow.
Radio adaptation of the Star Wars film.
Was it American or BBC?
It was American, and it had two of the actors in it. Mark Hamill was in it.
Right.
And Anthony Daniels was in it, playing
right, okay.
CPO.
It kind of doesn't surprise me that it was those two.
Well, I mean, it might have been more surprising at the time, because at the time we had no idea,
I guess so,
that Carrie Fisher was going to become the novelist, that Harrison Ford was going to be the breakout star.
Yeah.
I mean, we maybe did know that Alec Guinness possibly had other places to be. But yeah, that and I listened to that a few years ago again, and yeah, that's incredible. And I realized that loads of my memory of Star Wars and loads of that, I mean, that kind of almost gave me more Proustian rushes than the film does, because they actually broadcast it on Radio 1. And they
Radio 1, right?
Yeah, in the evenings. I could have found these dates out. Wow. About a year or so after. It was at some point between Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
I'm imagining now you listening to that, and then that's how you discovered John Peel, and your future was sealed.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think if for a magical radio story, I'm going to be honest and say that the Star Wars radio serial on Radio 1 had a far bigger impact on me than the lovely John Peel.
Yeah.
Do you want me to show you some other things here that I've got for you?
Yeah.
So, once again, what I quite like is all sorts of... my friend Craig, who I'll probably talk to a bit as well, who's kind of been my Obi-Wan Kenobi and becoming reacquainted with Star Wars, describes like 1977 as kind of a Wild West in terms of artwork, and everything's got another interpretation. And that's great. They're just throwing out the licenses for this stuff willy-nilly. Somebody says,
do you know who did that cover? Is it
That's
it
the
got
other
credit?
thing as well. It's kind of really hard to find a lot of the artists. Craig has brought some original art from scrapbooks, and there you go, a nice little credit, John Berkeley. There you go, John Berkeley.
That's really good. Really good.
Yeah.
That.
This I like. This is a Star Wars jigsaw, but it's a Star Wars jigsaw of a scene in the film
of the toys.
But the film is made from the toys.
Oh my God. That is crazy.
Yeah. It's also a scene that didn't happen in the film, of course, because
no.
Hold on. Are you still it? Yeah, I just got charge you. Up your jacksie. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And this is mine from childhood. This isn't an eBay purchase, and
so
I gasped. I found this after in my mum and dad's loft after my dad died the other year. I actually gasped when I saw this, because my brain doesn't remember stuff like this until I see it. The object is what unlocks things.
Yeah. Those toys we were looking at then, have you got all of those?
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I was saying is that this scene doesn't even happen in the film. Obviously, Darth Vader never goes on tattooing, and
no.
I mean, this would be a much shorter film, wouldn't it? If Darth Vader suddenly found the droids he was looking for, and Princess Leia coming out of a hut. I mean, I suppose actually looking at that, the game's up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I suppose I should probably crack it open and do the jigsaw.
You should do.
But then would I be horrified if there was a bit missing?
You might be. Schrodinger's jigsaw, that, isn't it?
So I kind of commissioned you, didn't I, for this?
You did.
This Brentwood tuxedo.
Loose commission. A loose commission.
Loose commission. So should we explain what you're doing, or do you think we should let it ride a little more?
No, people are going to be. I was going to explain. So basically, this was triggered. I'll tell you what. It was triggered by a drawing I did a few months ago, actually. I think you stored it in the back of your head. I'm going to go and grab it because it's just in my drawer unit.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know what you're talking about. I've forgotten the genesis of this idea.
So I drew this when I found it. I drew this during one of our drawing clubs. There we go.
Yes.
Burt Reynolds as Stormtrooper, but he's not actually. He is specifically as Luke Skywalker as a Stormtrooper.
Okay.
Yeah, when he disguises himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you said that reminded you about all the alternate Star Wars cast.
Yeah,
people who were considered for roles and auditioned and stuff.
Yeah, and I had an idea of you drawing that. And once again, he will keep making cameos in this this video. My friend Craig Spivey, who has a much better. Have I shown you the things? Have I shown you the thing that Craig's done about Looking magazines and the artist for Looking?
No.
Oh my God! So you're quite like Craig in both of you, sort of mine in your youth and the 70s and stuff. It's just that his is a lot to do with Star Wars. Yeah. Okay, we can put a link. We can put a link down below this video, can't we?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'll put a link. I'll put a link there for Craig's exhaustive blog about the art on Looking the looking magazine.
Was it Arnaldo Puzzu?
Yeah, it's all about that and stuff. Yeah. What was I saying before that?
This alternate.
Oh yes, and then so I had the idea that if we did a Brentwood tuxedo about Star Wars, and if I could persuade you to do it, that the way in for you, a lesser committed Star Wars fan, would be to draw an alternate universe Star Wars.
Which, I was well up for. And then your friend
Craig helped us. I asked Craig who were. I'd heard rumours about people that nearly got the parts, other than as opposed to Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill. So who are you drawing there?
Well, this was one of the article that you sent me, that Craig had sent you, had he mentioned Bill Murray was considered for the role of Han Solo. And
I missed that one. I must have.
Yeah, and you can kind of see. Well, they both had the character had the dry humour.
The problem is you sort of have to remember how young Bill Murray was then. That's the unfair thing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But on that little bit about Bill Murray, it said also Bill Murray's Saturday Night Live colleagues, Steve Martin and Chevy Chase, were also considered for the role. Now, I'm not sure how spot on, what they mean by considered. Was it just someone going, Chevy Chase? Nah.
Well, and Craig himself, when he gave us this information, says, people, I think he said something to suggest that people get a bit carried away with this stuff, what ifs could have been. And Star Wars itself is such a massive thing that, sure.
Yeah.
And also, like you say, what is considered?
Yeah.
Like in a meeting once, did they go, oh, well, maybe that Steve Martin guy could be Tarkin. I mean, maybe they said that once. It doesn't, He did send some actual,
however,
some auditions, though, didn't he?
Yes, Kurt Russell, he was auditioning for Han Solo with William Katz as Luke Skywalker. William Katz of, was it Greatest American Hero fame? That's a kids' TV show, which I loved. And he was in the horror film House? I think he was in the first one of them.
So hold on, who have we got here? Have we got Bill Murray?
So when I saw his name on that list, I could not resist drawing Chevy Chase as Han Solo.
Okay.
I had to do it. I love Chevy Chase. I love him. I know a lot of people possibly hate him. He can be quite a smug sort of character on screen, but Fletch
isn't the actual man? Isn't he himself a little cantankerous? Does he not get a little bit?
I think he's rubbed a few people up the wrong way in his time. Yeah, fair to say. I love him. Those films, Fletch. I love Fletch. I love Fletch Lives. I think it's great. I've just discovered whilst I was looking up Chevy Chase photos for this. He did a film in 1980 with Jane Seymour where he's he gets killed, comes back as a dog, and has to find his killers as a dog. And he's just doing the voice of the dog. It's called Heavenly Dog. So I need to see this film. Omar Sharif's in it, and
seeing as we've done
with the Paul McCartney song.
I mean, it starts with a Paul McCartney song. What did you say about Paul McCartney?
Is it Arrow Through Me?
Okay.
A Winged song.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it opens with that. and it's set in London. And yeah, oh heavenly dog, I need to see it. It looks awful, but that's exactly what I'm kind of hoping it is awful, really. And dubious in the trailer, dubious moments of the dog in the bath with Jane Seymour, but of course, it's not a dog; it's Chevy Chase.
Oh, and is there a joke about that? Is there a joke about the dog going, stroke me, Jane, and things like that? Is there?
Yeah, there is a joke about that in the trailer. But Chevy Chase as Han Solo again. I can't see how it would have worked. Harrison Ford just had that right amount of sardonic humor, but also just really great action hero charisma about him.
Yes, and this is what I mean about this incredible serendipity in the first movie. How could they have got? I mean, that cast him more right. In actual fact,
yeah.
And Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. Actually, I think Mark Hamill. Yeah. I think Mark Hamill gets sometimes a little bit of a raw deal with those things, but actually, he did exactly what he had to do. He had to be wide-eyed, innocent, and just the good guy. And of course, the guy that gets to play Han Solo has a much more meatier role and meatier scenes to do.
Yeah. Remind me, is the film kind of told through Luke Skywalker's eyes?
Well, no, not really. He has this. Well, okay, I'm going to get really geeky with you now.
Go for it.
It's really told through the eyes of the droids.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
C-3PO. I've got C-3PO here with no arms and legs.
No arms.
Because he's being carried in a backpack by
right.
Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Yes, it starts off with the most or the least important in some ways. The least important heroes in some ways. The least important heroes. I mean, also R2 drives the plot forward because R2 has the plans from the Death Star inside him. So everything about the story. So in a way, he is quite important. But the motif of these two unimportant characters traveling through the movie and gradually picking up Luke, then Obi-Wan, then Han, then Leia to the end is stolen from Hidden Fortress. I think I'm right in saying this. A Kurosawa film, and in that it's two slaves that open the film up, walking into the shop, and which I think is, I mean, it's an ingenious idea. Whoever had it, but it's also ingenious to steal it. I mean, I think it's a great idea to steal.
Yeah,
and that's why. That's actually why some of the scenes in here, in this comic, that show Luke on Tatooine, that's why they were taken out, because it disrupted that. Story. So there's these scenes here with Luke talking to Biggs, and these don't appear in the movie, even though they're filmed, because this would have stopped us following. We want to see Luke for the first time when C-3PO and R2 see Luke.
Yeah. I've got Hidden Fortress. I should get round to watching that.
I believe I have seen it. in the
It's a
way.
long one, though, isn't it? It's like a
Yeah.
3-hour one.
I think there's elements of a few Kurosawa films, I think, in Star Wars.
Right.
Also, the other big influence on Star Wars is, we've sort of already mentioned them, but Lucas's sort of seeing Saturday morning cinema. So, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, the original ones, are also another influence on them. And so that kind of, the way the words come up at the beginning and the story so far.
Yeah. Oh, of course,
That's all taken from those.
Would you think, I know he said, there was always a plan for films before this, but we didn't have the technology. But really, that story so far bit at the start, it's just there to recreate those Saturday morning serials, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have really strong feelings about it. Well, when Star Wars first came out, it didn't say, when that scroll went up, it didn't say Episode 4 and it didn't say A New Hope. But
Did it not?
No. It said on the original release, the film was called Star Wars, it said Star Wars, and then it said whatever it says.
How soon did that get changed?
Pretty soon. Yeah, pretty soon. I think it happened on a re-release before Empire Strikes Back came out. So when Empire Strikes Back came out, then it said Episode 5 and The Empire Strikes Back. And by that point, if you saw Star Wars as a re-release, it said Episode 4.
So by the time it made it to British TV, that had already been changed.
That's a good question. You'd need we'd need Craig or someone or a proper Star Wars professor to do that. I don't know. That would be interesting to know. I know that there's a thing online called it's called Star Wars Despecialized.
Right.
And it's an attempt by fans to try and recreate what was seen in cinemas in 1977. But
nice.
it's really hard to do because, like, Lucas was tampering with it straight away.
Yeah.
But
this is what puts me off, like going back to watch it, because I know I won't be able to really find the version that I saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that is one way you can do it. You can download this thing if you go on torrent sites or whatever and look for Star Wars Despecialized, then you'll find this fan version, which I think is generally accepted to be the closest way to do it. I think everyone constantly expects them to do it, because why wouldn't they? And I don't know, I think some people have a theory even that it'll happen when George Lucas dies. Like maybe even though he's sold it all to Disney, he's got you can't be showing the original Star Wars. This is the way I want it. But yeah, no, I'm absolutely certain that I'm completely certain that when they're making Star Wars, nobody on that set, not even George Lucas, thinks that Darth Vader is Luke's dad. I'm absolutely convinced he just kept making it up.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be any evidence to counter this. There doesn't seem to be any drafts or, they don't uncover scripts where, he's got Episode 4 written on it and all this business,
Well, and I think if they knew before they started filming it, they would be dropping hints, I reckon.
Well, I mean, they also wouldn't be having Luke Skywalker constantly scroting over his sister.
Yes, yeah.
But I mean, I don't. It's not even that. I'm not necessarily holding against it. I mean, even that stuff of it being made up and Lucas being a bit of a goofball. Yeah, I think even that is kind of like part of the charm.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think where it gets weird is where where fans get quite angry about that and trying to make all this make sense and get furious about it. I mean,
yeah.
But the fact that the whole thing is a bit of a nonsense it's kind of funny. Do you know who this guy is who I've painted?
Haven't a clue. Oh, let me guess, actually. No, because I might actually know. Is it Greedo?
That's good enough. Yeah. It's Greedo.
Greedo.
Greebo is a movement in Birmingham to which Wonder Stuff and Pop Will Eat Itself belong to.
And isn't it a cat in the Discworld novels as well?
Well, I'm glad I don't come out of this one looking like a geek now.
Whoa!
This is the guy that Han Solo shoots under the table or just beside the table in the cantina in Star Wars. Yeah. And also, of course, responsible for the most legendary and frustrating change that Lucas made, because Lucas later decided that it was too cold-blooded for Han to shoot Greedo, so he made Greedo shoot first in another edit. But it looks ridiculous because Greedo's like 2 feet away from Han and he misses. So it just looks absurd when he does this shot and misses. I have plenty more to talk about, and so I think we might have to do a part 2 of Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I've nearly finished this. I'm just doing some.
Oh, I didn't mean to hurry you. Oh, I see.
No, you've not hurried me. You've not hurried me.
Oh. Okay. So here we go. I now know the scene which you've put Chevy Chase into. Right. Like I know what Han Solo's doing in that scene.
Is it one of those? I'm looking at this photo. It's not one of those big sandcrawler things, is it?
No, that's the bunker that sends the force field up to the Death Star in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And I think he's looking at the he's surrounded by stormtroopers, and then up behind them, I think, comes a scout walker, and Chew is in it, and he opens it. And so the idea is that then the tables have turned on the stormtroopers, and then so Han in that with those arms is going, "Hey, what are you going to do? You've lost."
Yeah.
That's what he's doing to me. Hey, you've lost. I think I'm not saying it. God, I hope I haven't got too many things wrong.
No, just mention the funds then when you did. Hey, was Henry Winkler ever considered?
Let's say he was, so you can draw him in the next one. But I think he should be Henry Winkler as Ben Kenobi.
Well, that would explain how he always got the jukebox working.
Yes. Here's Luke. Shall I just bring some other?
Yes.
Once again, I love the sort of naivety of these toys. I mean, the scantest resemblance. Do you need to be reminded what Alec Guinness looked like in Figure 4?
Yeah. There he is. Yes, with that plastic, that pleather coat, the pleather robe.
Yeah. Oh God, came over a bit unnecessary when you mentioned pleather.
Just get this in. Tell you what.
Tell me what.
I've got pretty good at getting likenesses.
Well, I mean, we're not talking about Inktober in this video, but as you know, I mean, I very much shy away from drawing likeness. And one reason more than any other I should shy away from drawing likeness now is because you do, So I think in terms of doing this video and stuff, it's quite good that there's a difference between us. But you sort of made me feel a bit more confident about doing it because of watching you, I think. And so today in Inktober,
right?
I'll show it quickly. It doesn't matter if we show it, does it? I drew.
Yeah, sure, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I drew Mike Baldwin decking Ken Barlow in The Rover's Return, and it's.
It's kind of relevant to this because a lot of people, British people who watch Star Wars, who are our age, will also have seen that and remember it.
Yes, it's very much the same time frame, isn't it? I don't know. It's almost like I'm trying to word this right, because it's almost like I'm saying you showed me how easy it is to do likeness, and it's not that. It's just that you have a confidence about it, and you sort of just put the ink down on the paper, and you sort of go, "This is Des Lynam because I say it's Des Lynam." And 9 times out of 10, it looks like Des Lynam because you just say it is. And so I was trying to approach this very much in the same way. It's like if I do that sort of boxy big hair, and I'm particularly pleased with this because this doesn't look anything like Mike Baldwin, but also does look like Mike Baldwin.
Yes, exactly. Big fan of that. I love it.
I like the double-breasted suit as well.
Yeah. It's coming up and it's great.
My favourite person in the world saw it and didn't know who it was, but said it looked like Spandau Ballet having a fight, which I thought was close enough, really, because of the double-breasted jackets.
Give me my royalties, Kemp.
Oh yeah, they're very angry about that, aren't they? Have you heard the E17 version of that that story? The Spandau Ballet story is that Gary Kemp wrote all the songs.
Yeah.
And eventually, years later, they realised, oh, he's 10 times richer than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And this happens time and time again. Bands fall out over this.
Cool.
But the E17 one's funny because they're like, oh, Tony was always in his room. We were going out partying. We were having girls. And he was just always in his room playing with his keyboard or whatever. What a square. And then apparently they're on a tour bus and the other 3 of them are on the back seat of the tour bus and they hear this like tooting and they look out the back window and there's Tony Mortimer in like a Ferrari driving behind them. They're like, oh, that's what he was doing.
Brilliant. Well, this is basically done.
I'm done too.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do actually is digitize mine and add some digital textures to get it sorted, I think. But yeah, sorted. Look at that. Okay. Greedo. I've got enough to talk a little more and do another Star Wars picture, if you don't mind indulging me. Shall we have a brief pause? And
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Goodbye, Darren.
Bye, Darren.